Well, welcome everyone. My name is Michael Silhavy, Senior Project Editor at GIA Publications in Chicago. And today we have a chance to gather for this webinar where we want to do a couple things. We want to talk about GIA's relationship with the Royal School of Church Music. And we also want to say hello to Joanna Forbes L'Estrange, a composer in the Royal School catalog. We're going to talk to her about her craft and how she works and how she got to where she is, and also listen to some of her music along the way with score videos. So we will get you in the Advent and Christmas mood and even move a little past that. We want to start with a little introductory hello video from Tim Ruffer from the Royal School and Sarah Wolf from GIA. And they've done a little pre-recorded session that we're going to watch right now. And we'll watch the two of them talk about this relationship we have.
Hello, this is a little different for a webinar, but to get everyone together at the same time across time zones can be a little challenging. So we're thinking outside of the box today, and we did a little separate interview here with our special guest, Tim Ruffer. So I'm Sarah Wolf. I am the marketing director at GIA Publications in Chicago, and I am here with Tim Ruffer, the head of publishing for the Royal School of Church Music in England. And I must first say that GIA is very proud to be the American distributor for the Royal School of Church Music. So hello, Tim. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here, Sarah. Thanks very much for having me on.
Wonderful. And for those who are watching who may not know a lot about the Royal School of Church Music, would you mind giving us some background?
Yep. The RSCM was founded in 1927. Actually, it wasn't originally called the Royal School of Church Music, but the king at the time liked it so much that he gave us the royal name. So that's great. We were founded by a gentleman called Sir Sidney Nicholson, and essentially our remit is to improve music in church. And he felt very strongly that a lot of choirs needed help. And it's the same now as it was then. And we're trying to get churches to improve their music in all sorts of ways, but especially with choirs and choir training, which is where our Voice for Life scheme comes in. And we're absolutely thrilled that GIA produced a special edition of our Voice for Life workbooks with obviously with American terminology. We are two countries divided by the same language.
Right.
So instead of, in the UK, we have crotchets, minims, and all sorts of things. It's as you would expect it in America. So, and we're just going through those books at the moment and updating them. So I think we've just done the light blue workbook, which is the best-selling one, and we'll be going through the whole series in the next few months.
Yes.
But also, we produce a lot of music for choirs to sing, and I think we'll be talking about some of that today.
Absolutely. It's just we have some wonderful new-ish, new to us here in America, music for Advent and Christmas, which of course is coming right around the corner. And we may throw in, one or two things for Lent too, just for those of you who are planning way ahead of time. But that is why we're here today, to introduce our audience here to some of the music that you may not have realized is there and available. And I think you'll be delighted. And I would, of course, our special guest today is one of Royal School's composers. And I'm wondering, Tim, if you could give us a little introduction.
Yes, of course. we've been publishing the music of Joanna Forbes L'Estrange for about 5 or 6 years now. And how it came about is that we had a mutual friend, a very good choral conductor called Esther Jones. And Esther phoned me up and said, I've got this friend who's written a communion setting for her local church, and it's really good, and I think you should publish it. And usually when people sort of do that sort of thing, I go, oh. But there was, Joe sent it to me, sent a score, and I had a look, and yeah, I mean, it's a really upbeat, really classy setting, lots of tunes in it, and I thought, yeah, this is very good. So we did, and it went really well. And Joe and I developed this relationship, which is one of the things I really love about music publishing, is the relationship between publisher and composer. And so I think we get on pretty well. But she's such a wonderful composer. And last month, I had a look at the top 10 sellers for all our sales last month. Joe had 3 pieces in that top 10. That's everything that we sell, which I think is an amazing testament to her compositional style and ability. Hopefully you'll hear a bit more about that from the composer herself.
Wonderful. And with that, we'll turn it over to Michael and Joanna.
Joe, we had the chance just to visit for the very first time last week in preparation for this. And so Tim, of course, gave you a nice introduction, but I learned so much more about you. You certainly come from a musical family, and you are just surrounded by musicians and composers, it seems. So you want to share a little bit more on a more personal basis of how you got to where you are today with all the folks around you.
Yes, well, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me on to be part of this webinar. It's a really lovely opportunity to be able to speak to a different audience. Yes, my family, my Forbes family, my birth name, is a family of musicians. My grandfather was called Watson Forbes, and he was a very well-known viola player. He was a Scottish viola player, and he wrote loads and loads of arrangements for the viola. I'm always meeting people who say, Watson Forbes, oh yeah, I remember. And then my father, Sebastian Forbes, is a composer, a very different kind of composer from me. So he was writing very experimental music in the 1960s and 70s in particular, but still writing now in his 80s. And my husband is also a composer. He's a jazz musician. And now our son, Harry, is also composing, and he wrote a lovely couple of pieces for St. John's College Choir in Cambridge when he was head chorister there. So yeah, music is all around, and that's why I've ended up with 2 surnames, because various people in my family are published under the name Forbes, and various people in my family are published under the name L'Estrange. So I realised quite quickly that the only way I was going to identify myself, was by having both.
And you're not only a composer, but you are a singer, and not only a singer in one style, but a singer in many styles, it seems.
Yeah, I was very lucky because on my mum's side of the family, there are lots of singers and jazz musicians and amateur music. And so I had a lot of influence from that side as well. And I loved to sing when I was growing up. There was very little music at my school, but I was lucky enough to sing in my local parish church choir, which was a very small, very humble, very, we didn't have a lot of singers. We had a very small organ, but that experience was what got me hooked on church choral music. And when I arrived at Oxford University, where I did my music degree, it was singing that I was desperate to do. So I was a cellist and a pianist, and the course was a very academic course, but I was just longing to sing in more choirs. So I joined a choir called the Schola Cantorum of Oxford, and that just totally convinced me that singing was what I wanted to do. And so for the last 25 years, I've been a professional singer and still am a professional singer. Sang with the Swingles, I've toured the States many times with them. And I love to sing and I love to direct choirs as well. And I feel that my experience as a singer and as a choir director really informs my writing. Because when I'm writing, I'm not just writing what I want to write, I'm writing what I hope choirs want to sing, particularly parish church choirs, although it's always lovely when the big famous choirs also sing my music, but I'm particularly aiming at the parish church choirs, and I want to make the experience as enjoyable and accessible for them as possible, and that's something I care really deeply about.
So for our American viewers, where in Great Britain are you? What part of the country are you in? Where are you based out of?
Just north of London. So if you think of London as like this, and I'm just about 30 minutes by train or by car north of London in the county of Hertfordshire. So my nearest big cathedral is St Albans Abbey, which has the longest nave in the UK, I believe. And yeah, so I'm just north of there and I'm in the countryside. Right now I'm sitting in my music room at home in front of my lovely old piano that I inherited from my grandmother, no, from my father. And yeah, we live in the country, which is really nice, but I can get into London pretty quickly when I need to. So it's the best of both worlds.
Great. So we're going to very much look at some of your music and listen coming up, but tell us about your approach as a composer, because it's different for everyone. Do you compose at the desk, at the piano, at the lake, at the cottage, in a dream? How do you go about the act of composing?
Well, for me, it all starts with the words. So I love words. I love to read them and I love to write them. I've always been very interested in poetry and texts and the beauty of the English language, really. And so I can't imagine writing something that didn't have words. I'm full of admiration for people who write symphonies. I wouldn't know where to begin because the springboard for me is the text. And if I'm given a particular text to set, like the mass setting that Tim mentioned, or sometimes, you know, I'm commissioned to write a set of praises and responses or something like that, then that's one thing. But more often than not, I'm not given a text. And so then I love to write my own words, which I do quite a lot. And once I've got those words, then I find the process of setting them comes relatively quickly because I get the melodies and the harmonies and the shapes and the rhythms from the words. So for a long time, I'll have them in my head, and whatever I'm doing, whether it's running or just cooking or shopping or whatever it is I'm doing, those words are going in my head, and then suddenly melodies will come. And then I come to my piano and I write at the piano. So I'll then play and the harmonies will begin to come, and I scribble here on my manuscript paper. This is my whole book of all the pieces I've been writing. Pencil and rubber, it's very eraser. It's very old-fashioned, I guess. And then when I've written it, I give it to my husband, who is a whiz at putting typesetting music onto the computer. So he does that for me, which is very, very lucky for me. So yeah, it's about the words and it's about the melody that springs from the words and the harmonies that spring from the melody.
So just one more thing before we start to listen, and once again, in the spirit and hopes to introduce you to some of our American customers here, what has been your connection with the U.S. with commissions or writing? You mentioned you have done some touring here, but yeah. What other connections you may have with us here?
Oh, well, so many. So I've been to the US about 20 times, I think. Sometimes mostly as a singer, I have to say, touring with the Swingles, which was this 8-voice vocal group that was formed by an American, Ward Swingle was his name. And so we always had that American connection. And I toured with them for 7 years, and I directed the group as well. So often in America, I would be running choral workshops with all types of choirs, from student choirs to professional choirs to choirs in churches and college choirs. And I remember particularly coming to the ACDA convention in 2001 with the Swingles, and we were presenting some workshops and things there. It was in San Antonio. And that was extraordinary because there was a huge following of Swingle singers, fans there. And I remember we started singing one of the Bach fugues. Bum, 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 ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, and there was this huge surge of applause from the audience. And, you know, that was lovely, but they didn't stop. They just kept applauding through the entire duration of the fugue. So for 3.5 minutes, they were clapping while we were singing. I'll never forget that. It was amazing. And then, yeah, I've been in touch with quite a lot of choirs who say they like singing my music, which is lovely. And there was one choir in particular who commissioned my praises and responses. A fabulous named guy, Dr. Homer Ashton Ferguson III, who's the organist and choir master of Emmanuel Episcopal Church, Southern Pines, North Carolina. So that was really nice to have that commission from him. And then I did a setting of the Chorister's Prayer for the RSCM last year, or maybe a couple of years ago now. And that was lovely because I met through a mutual friend a woman called Maxine Thevenot, and she sponsored that particular commission, and she's a great supporter of my work. So it's been really lovely to have these connections with America, and I really hope to come back sometime, maybe with my composer hat on rather than with my singer hat on, because it would just be such a joy to meet some of the people who've been telling me how much they're enjoying singing my music.
Great. Well, let's do that right now. Let's look at some of your pieces. And being good liturgical year people, let's start right with Advent. And the first piece we want to talk about is your Advent O carol. And I sense a lot of people may know what the O is, but some may not. So a little intro about the O antiphons and the wonderful little wordplay that we also know about these the invocations, right?
Yeah, so I called it the O Carol because there are these traditional seven O antiphons, which were sung in the days immediately leading up to Christmas. So O Sapientia is the first one, which means O Wisdom. O Adonai, which means O Lord and Ruler. O Radix Jesse, which is O Root of Jesse. O Clavis David, O Key of David. O Oriens, which means O Dawn of the East. O Rex Gentium, O King of the Gentiles. And finally, O Emmanuel, which is O Emmanuel. And if you remove the O's and you just take the first letter, I love this kind of thing. I told you I loved words. You take the first letter of each of those Latin words, Sapientia, Adonai, Radix, Clavis, Oriens, Rex, and Emmanuel, you get S-A-R-C-O-R-E. And if you reverse that acrostic, you get Aero Crus, which you can translate from the Latin to English as I shall be with you tomorrow, or as I've put it, tomorrow I will come. I love that kind of thing. And one of my friends who directs a choir, Tenebrae, so Nigel Short, he said to me, you know, there are no settings of all 7 of the antiphons because it would be too long. You know, the words, you would just go on forever. It would be like a 25-minute piece in the middle of your carol service. He said, I wish there was a setting that used all 7, but was a doable length. And so I thought, great, that's what I'm going to do. So I just took a section of each of those antiphon lyrics and I added some of my own to make a piece that would last. It lasts about 5 minutes. And then at the end, and I combined the English and the Latin together, and then at the end I finished with this resolution of tomorrow I will come. And because there are 7 antiphons, I thought, okay, I'll make it in 7. So a lot of the piece is in 7/8, and it's got a refrain that plays on that sort of 7/8 and uses the O, oh, oh, just using that O all the way through. And yeah, I had such fun with it, and it's just, I've been absolutely thrilled that a lot of church choirs have sung it, but also I remembered to bring this because Tenebrae have just recorded it on their new disc in Winter's House, and it's an absolutely sublime recording. So I just wanted to put a quick plug out for Tenebrae. It's on the Signum Classics label because they sing it just beautifully.
Well, let's take a listen and let's watch the video. So this is Advent O Carol.
We long for you, O King of the Gentiles. We long for your coming, O Lord. Come and deliver man whom you formed out of the dust of the earth. Come to save us, O Lord our Tomorrow I will
Wonderful. Obviously, that was the end of the piece, but I think we get a sense of it. And yes, that's what Advent sounds like, isn't it? So
Oh,
yes,
that's
thank
so
you.
nice of you to say.
Let's look at a Christmas piece. And you talked about how important it is to find the right words. And boy, here in this country, we certainly know the hymn texts of Timothy Dudley Smith. And I believe, well, he is the author of your setting, Carol of the Crib. So what would you like to say about this one for us?
Oh, well, this was so lovely because this was Tim Ruffer's suggestion to me. He said, I've got this wonderful text by Timothy Dudley Smith, and I wondered if you would like to set it. So this was a piece that wasn't commissioned by anybody, and I didn't actually dedicate it to anybody in this version, although in its other arrangement for SA Unison Lower Voices, which comes in the RSCM compilation book, I did dedicate it to one of my godchildren. But yeah, it was just a wonderful text. Light to the world, a child is born, dark as the night before the dawn. To me, straight away, it just sounded, it was clearly going to be in 3/4 and have this sort of minor modality, but then with a major refrain each time, for Christ has come. So it's a constant sort of play between F sharp minor and an A major. I've always enjoyed that play with major minor tonality. I just think it sounds, it's such an easy way to get the effect of darkness and then light. So the verses are very much the darkness, and then the light is Christ has come. And I wanted to make it the kind of tune that's almost like a hymn tune, the chorus, so that a congregation could join in with the refrain if they wanted to. So I know that there have been a few churches here in England that have printed just the melody line, which the RSCM have put at the back there. They've given that to the congregation in the service booklet so that they can join in. And I think that's really nice. I like the challenge of writing a melody that stays within an octave so that it's perfectly singable by untrained singers, just like hymn tunes. And I think that if it's well crafted, it should be just as rewarding to sing, but without that feeling of, that goes too high for me, or, I can't get that right. So that was my aim with this. And gosh, I've been so thrilled at the uptake of this, and the fact that I think it's one of my best-selling pieces, I think Tim said. And then in the final verse, there are 3 verses. The final verse, I've added a descant. So I love the idea that maybe your congregation is singing the main tune, and that your choir is then freed up, your sopranos are freed up to sing this descant over the top. It's kind of uplifting, but at the same time quite moving, I hope. It would be really good for your crib services. I don't know whether you have the same sort of thing that we have here. We tend to have these crib services leading up to Christmas Day, where sometimes there are little figurines of the Nativity, and maybe children bring them up. I remember my children used to bring up the little figures and dressed with the tea towel on their head and being the shepherds and so on. So it works really well for that kind of service. Or you could put it in your regular carol service. But yeah, I'm really thrilled. It was just a real joy to set these words. They're just beautiful words.
Great. Let's take a listen to a little bit of Carol of the Crib. And as we do that, in the chat, we are showing you links to our website where you can find these whole the whole editions and how to order and view the whole piece. So keep your eye on the chat if you're interested. But right now, let's take a listen to some of Carol of the Crib.
I love.
Well, I think I've just added a new piece to my Christmas lineup for this year, based on the fact that obviously you know how to respond to the needs of typical church choirs, this 3-voice texture. And that piece and the next one are found in this wonderful book from the Royal School. And I love the titles, Sopranos, Altos, and Unison Lower Voices. That gets rid of the whole bass, baritone, tenor thing. It allows for the altos who are able to go low. It allows for women who prefer to sing or can sing the tenor and bass part. So that is a wonderful term that you've all developed over there. And because it's a response to reality. So once again, not only...
It is. Yeah.
So let's look at Song of the Shepherds, which is in that same collection and very much follows that same idea. So Song of the Shepherds, tell us about that one, please.
So Song of the Shepherds, I wanted to write a piece about that part of the Christmas story, but with a slight nod to my jazz singer background, because I'm obsessed with jazz and jazz vocal groups, and I love movies like Pitch Perfect and all of those. I just, singing in an a cappella group myself was complete joy. So in the chorus of Song of the Shepherds, I just allowed myself just to get a little tiny bit jazzy, not hugely so, because I didn't want to alienate church choirs, who might think, oh no, that won't really work. So what I've done is I've told the story of the shepherds in my own words. And the verses are just storytelling, very simple melody. The introduction to each verse you will recognize, because I've taken a few bars of a well-known carol that refers to the words that are just about to be heard. So those are the verses. But then in the chorus, I've just gone into a tiny bit of jazz swing. I love to teach choirs that are used to singing classical music how to sing jazz. So I have this workshop called You Can Sing, but Can You Swing? Which I've run quite a lot in America and obviously over here. But again, it's something that we provide backing tracks and we provide audio demos, because what I love the idea of is that a choir might look at that song in the book that you've just shown us and think, oh, I don't know if we can manage, but then listen to the demo and go, oh, do you know what, we could do that. And it would just be something a bit different from your usual pieces about the shepherds.
Let's take a listen to Song of the Shepherds.
Shepherds on the hillside looking after their sheep. Through the night they had to keep themselves from falling asleep. So imagine them
Yeah, you need to do an American edition of that because you know we have a different tune for O Little Town of Bethlehem. So
Oh,
I'm
yes.
sorry that we don't do Forest Green, but
How does your one go? I do know it.
Oh, little town of Bethlehem. Yeah. So
How
anyway,
still you see. Right. Okay, that's my challenge.
all right. Staying with the Christmas theme, let's look at In the Bleak Midwinter. And boy, here at GIA, we just seem to be doing a setting of In the Bleak Midwinter every 2 weeks, it feels like. But tell us about your setting and what makes it different.
Well, what makes it different is that it's just for upper voices, although I love to do different versions of my pieces. So if this proves popular, I can be persuaded to do a mixed voice version. But it's for upper voices and harp. And if you don't have a harpist to hand, then obviously it works perfectly well with piano. But I've always loved that Britain Ceremony of Carols texture of the upper voices and the harp. I just think it's magical. And so it occurred to me that I thought, what if choirs who are performing the Britain wanted to have another piece to go with that? And obviously I've sung in the Bleak Midwinter settings all my life, you know, and in Tenebrae, which I sang with for 20 years, we were always singing the famous versions of In the Bleak Midwinter and with the Swingles, and I love them. But for me, the F major tonality just sounds not bleak enough. I wanted to create a piece, a setting of it that sounded bleak. So the sparseness of the harp pizzicatos and then the glissandi that you get later, and the female voices singing dum 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 dum, having this kind of eerie, almost eerie, and then this quite chromatic modal melody going against that. It came into my head one day. It was one of those moments. I think I was doing something completely mundane, like washing up dishes, and I thought, oh, and I just had to down tools and come to the piano, and it just came really quickly, this piece. And I've dedicated it to the wonderful Anna Lapwood, who I'm sure many of people will have heard of. She directs the choirs of Pembroke College in Cambridge, and she's the most fabulous musician. She's so young. I think she's half my age. I'm not going to think about that too much. She's a brilliant organist, and she's a brilliant advocate for women learning to play the organ, which is still such a sort of male instrument, perceived to be quite a male instrument anyway. And she's just a breath of fresh air in choral music. She's funny. She doesn't take herself too seriously. And because she was also a harpist before she was an organist, I showed her my piece before the RSCM published it, because I just wanted to make sure I hadn't done anything that was unplayable in the harp part. And she found one note, which I had to change. It was perfect. But so I've dedicated it to her, and actually it's going to be having its first performance in December by Tenebrae again, who are going to sing it in an a cappella version, so unaccompanied, because that was something that they were keen to do, and it will work unaccompanied with a little bit of jiggery pokery here and there. But yeah, my intention was just to create something that reflected Christina Rossetti's words, the way that they spoke to me. And I just hope so much that choirs will give this a go, because, as I say, this upper voices with harp or with piano texture is something I've always loved, and I founded an upper voices choir myself in Cambridge, and I think I had their voices in mind when I wrote it.
Let's take a listen. In the Bleak Midwinter.
Frosty wind made moan. my heart.
What a treat to hear a familiar text in a brand new way because of the music. So thanks for that.
Oh, it's
Wonderful.
my pleasure. And it's lovely because you know, that was just a demo that I made at home with me singing all the lines and MIDI harp. So you know, it's not as it would sound with a choir, but it's at least something that a choir can hopefully listen to and think, oh, okay, that's how it goes. Because I'm all about the accessibility. I don't want anyone to think, oh, I don't think I'll be able to manage that. You know, yes, you can.
Let's look at another new one. And this time it seems the inspiration for I Will Hold Him is not text, but something else that inspired you.
Yes, so this amazing painting, it's just in black and white here. This is just a stunning painting by the Reverend Ali Barrett, who is a friend of mine. Again, she's in Cambridge, lots of Cambridge connections, but she's a wonderful painter. I mean, her main job is being a college chaplain, but she paints as a hobby. And I got in touch with her and I said, I want to write a piece about the Annunciation. And I said, do you have any paintings of the Annunciation? And she said, yes, I do. And she showed me this painting, and oh my goodness, as soon as I'd seen it and heard her description of it as well, I knew what I was going to write. So she said that her thinking behind the painting was that Mary is able to be overwhelmed when she hears this news, but not obliterated by the Holy Spirit, because the same God who calls her is also holding her and giving her strength. So likewise, she can hold Jesus because she herself is held. And that's what she's reflecting in that poem, in that painting. And so that's where I got the title from, I Will Hold Him. And so the words then came from the painting. Again, it's funny actually talking to you about my music, because it makes me realize how much I love the verse refrain structure. And I think maybe because I sing a lot of jazz and pop as well as classical choral music, I like that. I like it from the perspective of the singers thinking, we know this bit, this is the chorus, but also from the perspective of the congregation / audience, that they might go, I remember this bit from before, just that sense of familiarity. So again, it's strophic. It's got the verses telling the story of the angel speaking to Mary, and I've done it in a kind of 6/8 folky style, slightly modal to give it that eastern sound. But then in the middle, I've gone for a soprano solo, or it could be sung by a treble, which is Mary's response, and she just sings, I am here, my Lord, your humble servant, let me be. And for the first time, this 6/8 folky tempo stops, and you just get this completely free con voce section, which I hope will give the feeling of this is Mary receiving the news, because I don't think we very often hear Mary's perspective on it. I mean, I have 2 children. I think if someone had told me I was going to have a child and I was a virgin and it was going to be the child of God, and I can only imagine how she felt. She was a young girl, but she accepted this news because she felt held and supported, and then she was able to hold and support Jesus. So that's where it all came from. So thank you to Ali Barrett for the beautiful painting, and also thank you to her for allowing the RSCM to do a little reproduction of it in the back, because I really wanted choirs to see it and to know where it had come from.
Let's take a listen to I Will Hold Him.
The angel came to Galilee to bring the news to young Mary that chosen by the Lord was she to bear the Son of God. The angel greeted young Mary, fear not, the Lord hath favoured thee, for in thy womb a baby will become the Son of God.
Then Mary spoke, how can this be, since I am with virginity?
Saith Gabriel, you see, Mary, everything can with God. The Holy Ghost will come to thee, God's power will overshadow thee. The child you bear will be holy, he is the Son of God.
The Holy Ghost will come to me, God's power will overshadow me. The child I bear will be holy, he is the Son of God. I am here, my Lord, prayed Mary, your humble servant, let me be. Said Mary, I know my strength will come from thee, will come from thee, and I will hold him, and I will hold him, and I will hold him, just as thou holdest, I will hold, I will hold him.
Lovely. I love that use of portamento there. It was giving choirs a chance to do something different. You know, sometimes it accidentally happens, but now you intended for those voices to slide up there. So no, it's
I
fun when
love
choirs
to.
can experience new things like that. Yeah, wonderful.
I like
Um,
Cando because I think it gives it an Eastern flavour, which a lot of these stories were, originated. And I think also I enjoy choirs humming and oohing. And I think, again, that's my swingle singer's background, but not just always singing text, but sometimes
Sure.
just being there as accompaniment.
We're going to look at one more piece, you and I together, and we're going to skip ahead from Advent and Christmas and go to Holy Week. And this is your words from the cross.
Yes. So this is a piece for Good Friday services, so a Passiontide piece. This is my obsession with acrostics and words again, because we've got words from the cross, and then the beginning of each verse I've written a word which then spells the word cross. So the first verse is "Come hear the words that Jesus spoke," so that's the C. Then it goes "Ready to give his life for us," there's the R. Then you've got a chorus. I told you I like the verse chorus thing. "Greater love hath no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends." That comes back each time. Then you've got "offering up himself for love," which is the O of cross. And then "suddenly up to God he cried," which is the S. And then the final S is "sour wine was given to him." So I based the text on Jesus' 7 last words from the cross, but turned it into this verse, chorus texture. I love 6/8. I don't know why, maybe because I love folk music so much, but it's another 6/8 one. And it's something that I think any choir would be able to sing. It's not a difficult piece. It's very homophonic rather than polyphonic, so that the words can really be heard. And yeah, I hope choirs will really enjoy singing this at Easter.
Let's take a listen to Words from the Cross.
Sacrifice of God shows a love that never ends. Sour wine was given to him, thereafter Jesus said, "It is finished," for soon he would be dead. His final words upon the cross, as his breath came to its end, were, "Father, into your hands my spirit I commend." Greater love hath no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. The greatest, ultimate sacrifice of God shows a love that never ends.
Thank you. So we're approaching the end of our time together, but we're not quite done yet. So just a reminder, folks, you can find Joanna's pieces on our website. You can always enter by title. You can enter by Joanna's name. You can also go to the tab for the Royal School of Church Music and find it there. So there's a number of ways to access her pieces on the GIA website. We're not quite ready to say goodbye to you yet, folks. We're going to hear one more little recording that Tim and Sarah made. So I will hand it back over to them.
So in addition to all of the wonderful pieces that Joanna has shared with us today, we do have some other things that are new and doing well here in America. And we want to make sure that you know about them as well. Tim, we have a couple here that we would like to talk about. The first is Rejoice and Be Merry.
Mm-hmm. It's rollicking. It's a rollicking anthem, carol here, and it's Tim Parsons. When he wrote this, he was the assistant director of music at Exeter Cathedral in the southwest of England. Since then, he's gone on to better things or greater things as director of music at St Edmundsbury Cathedral, which is in the south east of England. It's one of the furthest east of the counties, diocese in England, sort of just next to Norwich. It's a sort of 7/8 piece with lots of. It's just great fun to sing, and in fact. We're going to be singing it here in Sarum College, where the RSCM lives in Salisbury. We have an annual carol service, and it's going to be the final carol in the Sarum College carol service. So we're putting our money where the
where the music is, right?
The music is, absolutely,
yeah. Well, wonderful. Let's listen to a clip then from Rejoice and Be Merry.
Rejoice and be merry in songs and in mirth. Oh, praise our Redeemer, our God on earth. For this is the birthday of Jesus our King, who brought us salvation. His praises we sing.
And finally, we have another piece that honestly just always makes me smile when I listen to it, and that is an arrangement of The Holly and the Ivy.
Yeah, and well, it's not an arrangement; it's an original
Oh, I'm
tune.
sorry. Yes.
But it's obviously the words are the ones that you
Right.
know. And it's by Thomas Hewitt Jones. We've been publishing Thomas's works for about 10 years now. And Tommy and I have a very close relationship. And he doesn't mind me telling him that something would sound better if it did this and that. Some composers can take umbrage at that, but Tommy actually asks for my opinion on a lot of things. And choral music is actually just a very small part of what he composes. In fact, at the moment, on TikTok, he is the composer of the second most popular TikTok piece of music in the world. And it's had literally millions of downloads and has even been used by Kim Kardashian, whoever she is. And which amuses him no end, as you can imagine. So he can really turn his art to lots of different things, from the bizarre really to sublime choral music. And Holly and the Ivy, as I say, it's an original composition, really up tempo. And it's available in two different versions. There's one for organ and choir. And also he's done a full orchestral arrangement. So, if you want to do something with your orchestra, he does a lot of fantastic arrangements for orchestra and does actually work doing orchestral arrangements for John Rutter. So, he's really established in that sort of genre. But the organ part, which I have played, not at all easy, but it's quite a challenge. And it also quotes, the merry organ and the choir bit. Little quote from the V Daughter Carter, which is very nice. If you sort of suddenly listen, I know that little bit there. So it's, I know you're going to love it. It's a great piece.
Such a fun piece, and I hope I end up at a concert where I get to hear that performed. It's lovely. So let's listen to a little bit of that one.
Jesus Christ, to do all sinners good. Oh, the rising of the sun and the running of the day, the playing of the merry organ, sweet singing in the choir. The holy bells of Brinko, as sharp as any foe, and the merry oh, sweet Jesus Christ on Christmas Day.
Well, thank you, Tim, for joining us today. And I hope that everyone visits the GIA site or the RSCM America site or the RSCM UK site. There are lots of places to learn more. But we'll send it now back to Michael and Joanna to say goodbye and answer any questions you might have.
Well, thanks, Sarah and Tim. Joanna, thank you. What great fun just to visit. And once again, our intent today was to let some of the folks here know a little bit more about the Royal School, but more importantly, to introduce you and your music to folks who may not know it yet. So thanks for this chance just to hear about your pieces and learn more about you. And as Sarah mentioned, plenty of opportunities and chances and ways to learn more about your music on our website. Sarah,
thank you very much.
Sarah did mention that if anyone had any questions, they could get us. The chat is open. We'll just hang for about 2 minutes. If someone is inspired to write something, once again, in the chat feature, you can once again see links to the pieces we looked at today. This webinar was recorded, so it will be up for future viewing. You can share it with your choir when you purchase some of Joanna's pieces, as they want to get to listen to pieces before Christmas and learn them. So let's just hang just for a second. And if not, folks can always get us at giamusic.com, write to us, and we can forward a message to Joanna.
They're very welcome.
Shy people.
Write to me via my website. I'm very happy for that as well, if that's useful for people.
You should tell us about your website, please. Yes, where
So,
can we
you can
find
write
you?
to me via JoannaForbesLestrange.com. It's just my website, and there's a contact form on there, and I always aim to reply within 24 hours. So yeah, just feel free to ask me anything you want. And on my website, I've got different sections for different things that I do. So my singer hat and my choir director's hat and my composing hat, and actually all of the front cover images for everything I've written, the sort of secular stuff as well as the stuff that RSCM publishes, is all there. And all you have to do is click on the cover image and it will take you to wherever you can download that. So yeah, please do have a look. And if you want to ask me any questions, you're very, very welcome.
So once again, we have already one person. Amaldo is thanking you for this and saying he's going to purchase music for your choir, for his choir. And then we've also put your web site on our chat feature, folks to access. So let's end it here. Once again, a delight to visit with you. We welcome the chance to bring you here to the States and visit more and learn more about your music. So thanks for this chance. And everyone, thanks again for viewing.